Next is David Fitch and then Nancy Sublet. David Fritch, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is David Fritch. I'm a worker on the ISFC project. I work in the Smith field. I work as Fritch. I do industrial safety, so OSHA stuff, not nuclear stuff, but I'm out there. I may not have a job tomorrow after what I'm about to say, but that's fine. Because I made a promise to my daughter that if no one else talked about what happened on Friday, that I would. About 12:30 on August 3rd, we were downloading, and the canister didn't download, but the rigging came all the way down. It was gross errors on the part of two individuals. There were gross errors on the part of two individuals, the operator and the rigger, that are inexplicable. So what we have is a canister that could have fallen 18 feet. It's a bad day. That happened. And you haven't heard about it. That's not right. My friend here is right. Public safety should be first. And I've been around nuclear for many years. It's not. Behind that gate, it's not. Here's a few things that I've observed in the 3 months I've been here. SQE, the safety conscious work environment, where people are constantly given encouragement to raise concerns. It's not repeatedly, or even I've never even received SQE training since I've been on site. That's not standard for a nuclear site. Operational experience is not shared. That problem had occurred before, but it wasn't shared with the crew that was working. We're undermanned. We don't have the proper personnel to get things done safely, and certainly undertrained. Many of the experienced supervisors, what we call CLSs, cast load supervisors, once they understand the project and how everything works, are often sent away, and we get new ones. They don't understand as well as even the craft, basic construction craft. A lot of them that haven't been around nuclear before are performing these tasks. Not technicians, not highly trained, not thorough briefs. This is an engineering problem. What happened is inside of that cask, there is a guide ring at 4 feet down, and it's to guide that canister down correctly to be centered in the system. Well, it actually caught that. And from what I understand, it was hanging by about 1/4 inch.
Thank you very much for your...
So...
Yeah, I'm not trying to cut him off, Ray. He stopped at the end of the time, and so I thanked him for his comment.
Sure. I just have...
If you want to very briefly finish.
Yes, yeah. And I think, I mean, obviously the point is clear. As people said, Edison's not forthright about what's going on. I'm sure they'll tell you that they were going to bring this out once it was analyzed, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure they were preparing what they would answer if it comes out. And I came here tonight to see if this event would be shared with the community, and I was disappointed to see that it was not. And I want to thank the community of San Clemente. It's a beautiful, wonderful community with amazing people. They've been great to me. My family's here with me for the month. And unless Edison and Holtec commit to defining success on this project as safety, and I'm not talking about any of the concerns that were voiced today. I'm just talking about downloading, getting the fuel out of the building safely. And are we going to address what would have happened to that canister if it would have fallen, even if the shell wasn't penetrated? Now will they take it in a repository site? But the question is, will Edison and Holtec commit to defining success primarily in terms of nuclear safety? And will there be transparency, commitment to safety, and the financial commitment to make sure that it's done successfully? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Nancy Sublet, and then the other questions. Tom, I need to, with the limits of what you can discuss concerning operational issues and personnel issues, tell us what people need to know right now and also what the plan is to tell them more.
Oh, sure. First of all, the gentleman who brought that up, I'm not familiar with him. I'll assure you I'll go back and make sure whoever he works for that he is protected. And he has a right to voice his concern, and that's important. So, and I credit him for bringing up an issue. What occurred Friday, first of all, nothing was dropped, okay? In downloading a canister, the canister, and I'll bring a graphic next time, and what I'll do is I'll write a letter to the CEP that we can circulate publicly so you have the facts. It's an industrial safety issue. In downloading a canister, the sealed canister has about 9/16, a half inch to 9/16 clearance to go through this ring. It's not unusual that it contacts the centering guide, sometimes comes to rest on the ring. It's got to be recognized, lifted off, the cranes move slightly and recentered. That's what has to happen. That's what did not happen in an effective manner on Friday. The two people involved, and I won't discuss the specifics because they have rights as well, did not recognize that the canister they were lowering hung up. And it took a matter of a number of minutes. Our monitor, Edison's monitor, recognized something was not right, brought it to the attention of the contractor doing the job. They then lifted the canister out and recentered it. The industrial safety concern for a drop would be while that canister is sitting on that edge and, let's say, wedged in the download position, by lowering the slings on the crane, could a drop have occurred? Okay. It appears unlikely, but you can't rule anything out, so it's an industrial safety issue in terms of a drop. The canister itself is designed to withstand that, but that doesn't excuse it. So a serious near miss, if you will, in terms of a rigging issue, and I'll be glad to provide more detail. Again, what's important is, the canister was safely set down within an hour of identifying the issue. No risk to the spent fuel or the public, no risk to the workers involved, and error on the part of the crew. So we and the contractor are looking into training, proper instructions, etc., and I'll be glad to detail more of that in writing to the panel that you can share.
I think it would be very helpful to detail that, not just the particular incident, but also what the larger process is for detecting, not just this event, but other kinds of events,
Right.
and improving worker training, and both on the nuclear side, but also on the worker safety side. It's
And
very
that's why I say
important.
we pause periodically to look at what we've learned, improve our procedures, improve our training. This obviously is an issue that we clearly need to act on before we download the next canister, which we will. But as we've gone through the process, we make sure we look back at what has worked and what has not worked.
Okay, thank you very much. Dan and Steve, you're going to put a handful of these questions back to folks, including Gary Lantham. Excuse me, Ray. Steve and Dan? No, he just explained why he didn't. Ray, this is not a formal whistleblower process, okay? And we'll. Okay, Tom, briefly.
Fair question. There was no risk to spent fuel, no risk to the public. It was a rigging issue that leads to an industrial safety issue. It was unacceptable. I judged we had other comments to discuss tonight and didn't view it as the same level. If you remember in the first meeting we talked about the shim issue that one of the commenters brought up. Didn't rise to the level of affecting the capability of the canister. So my judgment call on that.
Dan and Steve, please.
The NRC, we briefed the NRC on Monday.
Tom, please, I don't think it's helpful in a public meeting to call people ridiculous. He's explained his view as a professional. Sir, I'm speaking. He's explained his view as a professional in this area, overseeing this process and dealing with contractors, and he has also outlined for us how he's going to provide additional information back to the CEP and the public in a very timely way, and I can assure you, sir, that we will make sure that happens. So why don't we allow some of the other questions to be addressed as well?
Comments. I've served on this panel since it started, so I've been here all 4 years. I'm a little disappointed in tonight's meeting because bottom line, we are kind of a reflection, a sounding board of the community, and I don't feel we're keeping up. I don't think our answers are keeping up with the questions. I think that, several meetings ago, I asked for maybe a defense in depth 2. We had one several years ago, and it seemed like a lot of questions are based on that. And yet we haven't had it. It's been a heading on our meetings, but a good example tonight is part of my frustration I'm feeling is, in all respect to Tom and what he's trying to do, there's a lot of stuff to cover, but tonight after our transportation discussion, Tom got back up and covered 6 very important issues in 5 minutes. And he might as well not have done it, because I don't think anybody learned anything. And he's covering, we say there's an issue, we put it on, we talk about it for a very short period of time, but I don't think tonight we didn't do justice to any of those issues. And I would suggest that maybe we reconsider, reassess how we're doing these presentations, and because I feel that Donna's been saying the same thing for a long time, others have, and I don't think we're adequately keeping up with answers, and or if we are a sounding board for the public, then I think we need to be a little more responsive to the public. We talked briefly about Gene Stone's petition, and it was I got all those emails. It was kind of a 2-part petition. It talked about certainly lifetime monitoring, but it talked about a symposium at some point that the public it would be invited to, and we can learn more specifically. Now, we didn't even talk about that tonight, but that's okay. I would like at least somebody to tell me that Edison's going to consider that, and if not, then maybe UCI can do it. I went to a seminar 5 or 6 years ago after we had cooling rod problems, and they put on a seminar, and that was standing room only. And so, there's other alternatives, but I would like to see our meetings here to become a little robust in dealing with the concerns and dealing with maybe rearranging the schedule so we can better adequately answer questions from our perspective, or Edison's perspective.
Okay, thank you.
I'm done, but
no, that's a fair comment.
Yeah.
Let me ask Tom. I really need to get Dan and Steve to actually put some of the questions in the spirit of Gary's comments back to folks, including Gary. But I just want to say back to this, Gary, that fair criticism. Let's have some discussions initially offline about format and balance. I'll take responsibility for telling Tom not to put the 6 questions in the front part of his presentation, because I thought it would be useful to hear in a little more detail from Gary on the main topic of tonight's presentation. And so if that was an error and people wanted those 6 items to be earlier and squeeze more of Gary's time, like Gary Lantham's time, then that's a helpful feedback so that we are as responsive as possible. Thanks. Steve and Dan, with the limits of time, which I don't actually know what they are since we're already 15 minutes over.
You mentioned that the canister did not fall. If it did fall, this is really in reference to Donna, and well, we know that it's designed not to crack. If there had been a leak, what would you have done?
Well, first of all, like you said, the canister did not fall. The canister is designed and analyzed for a fall from approximately 25 feet. So the canister would not have been breached. Now, let's say hypothetically, had a leak occurred,
right.
If any canister is damaged, you immediately do a radiation survey to detect is there any radiation or radioactive material being released. Okay? Then you notify the appropriate authorities if the radioactive material is being released, which would be the NRC, be Orange County, be the state, so they can determine any protective actions. Then you decide how to isolate it as best you can from the environment. And then typically, again, as opposed to an operating reactor, which is at high temperatures and pressures, and all the emergency plans are driven around that, or a Fukushima situation where you have high decay heats in a reactor, typically the contents of a canister are much lower energy, temperature, and pressure. You've got time to plan how you isolate it, ensure the public is protected, and decide what the best course of action is.
And people have said tonight that the only option was hot cell, or the only option was to have a spent fuel pool. My understanding is that the main option would be to put it into a transport cask.
Well, a transport cask, some kind of, there was a comment about Maine Yankee. I'm very familiar with them. We work with the Yankee group all the time. They actually bought a canister or cask that they could put a damaged canister in. They haven't had to use it, hasn't been licensed. We're looking at the same thing for each of our canister designs.
Okay, thank you. Please. Steve?
Yes.
Please, Torgen. Steve Swartz, please.
Has Holtec offered to buy the way